Hey guys, welcome to the Troy Gramling podcast. This is our inaugural episode. I'm so glad you're here and whatever platform you're listening on. It's going to be an exciting conversation. We're talking about love and what makes love beautiful. I'm your host, and my co-host today is my beloved wife, Stephanie Michelle Gramling. Welcome.
Yes. Thank you. Honored to be here.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit about love, but before we do, let's talk about our love. How long have we been married?
It'll be 33 years.
July
15th,
yes.
1989.
That was
A
33
long time
years ago.
ago.
Now,
Yeah.
tell everybody out there listening how we met.
Yeah, well, that's kind of an interesting story. So our first time, face-to-face meeting. So we lived in the small town of Paragould, Arkansas. I don't know, it's like 20,000 people. And, kind of the thing that, obviously there wasn't a whole lot to do in a town that size. And so on the weekends, we would kind of cruise town. We kind of had this path, this circle that we made. And
Hold on just a second. Now, for all you youngins out there that don't know what cruising is, it's basically where you just get in your car and drive in a circle.
Yes.
And wave at people.
And wave at everybody as you pass by.
That was the big thing. And we not only did that one night each week, we did that at least two nights,
Right.
Friday and Saturday.
Yes.
And some people would even go up on Sunday.
Yes. So that's kind of the thing that we did. And so as we were cruising on this particular night, now I knew of you. I think you knew of me. I'd actually told a friend of mine, I'd like to meet him sometimes. But so on this night,
I didn't know that.
You didn't know that. But we're cruising, and I'm with my sister Mitzi, and we're going through, and all of a sudden I see this car pulled over on the side of the road. Looks like it's broke down. I think it was a Jeep.
It's my brother's Jeep.
Your brother's
It's
Jeep.
An orange Jeep.
Yes. And so I told my sister Mitzi, I'm like, I think that is Troy Gramling. I'm like, it looks like his car broke down. Let's pull over and see what's going on. So we did, and it did break down. Now, still to this day, I kind of wonder, was that coincidence that just as I drove by, your car happened to break down? But anyway, we pulled over, and we actually gave you a ride to your house, and kind of the rest is history. But that was our first time meeting. Now, I've told my kids, my kids love to hear that story because I think it's just so hilarious. But, I've told them I don't recommend this. I don't recommend just picking someone up on the side of the road. That's probably not safe, but it worked out for us.
Yes.
Here we are 33 years later.
33 years ago. Now, before we jump into it, I've got one question I think every dude out there would like to know the answer to. Because we just came out of a Christmas season not too long ago, and every year at Christmas time they have all these Christmas love movies on Hallmark and on Lifetime. But it's not just Christmas, and it's not just Easter, and it's not just Valentine's Day. They run those movies all the time.
They do.
Over and over. Now they're all recorded on our television.
Yes.
Why do you like to watch those so much? What is the draw to seeing? Yeah, because I know how they're going to go, right? They're
Right.
something difficult, and they're going to be attracted to one another,
Yeah.
fall in love, then they get separated,
Yeah.
and in the end, they
all works out.
they always come back together. So what is it that you like about those movies?
Yeah, I don't know. I just like I like the love part of it. And I think for me, knowing that that's typically how it's going to go, and every one of them, I know I can get through the difficult parts of the frustrations of something happening, because I know in the end they're going to, everything, they're going to come back together and everything's going to work out great. And, they're going to live happily ever after.
Just like real life.
Just like real life.
Well, here's what we want to talk about. We do want to talk about real life, and we want to talk about what makes love beautiful. And I was thinking about it, and I thought, a great place to start, and those of you out there listening might not realize that the Bible actually has a chapter that is read, maybe even at your own wedding. You may not have known that it's actually found in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, and it describes love and what makes it beautiful. So I wanted to start by just reading that. Here's what it says. It says, if I speak with tongues of mankind and of angels, but do not have love, I become just a gong, a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy, and I know all mysteries and all knowledge, and have all faith so as to remove mountains, but if I do not have love, I'm nothing. and if I give away all my possessions to charity, to help the poor, and if I surrender my body so that I may glory, but do not have love, it does me no good. So it starts kind of by telling us how important love is. That's why they read it at weddings. And here's the part that is always read at probably almost every wedding. Love is patient. Love is kind. It is not jealous. Love does not brag. It is not arrogant. It does not act disgracefully. It does not seek its own benefit. It's not provoked. It does not keep an account of wrong suffered. It does not rejoice in unrighteousness, but rejoices when truth. It keeps every confidence. It believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. But now faith, hope, and love remain, these three. But the greatest of these, it says, is love. So it's a pretty powerful idea or picture of what makes love beautiful.
Yeah. No, that's a beautiful scripture. And like you said, it is often read, at weddings because,
it was at our wedding.
It was at our wedding.
So what I want to do, Steph, is I read an article in the Huffington Post, and it said 10 reasons why love is the best feeling in the world. Mm-hmm. And as I looked over these 10 things, it sounded a lot like what I read in Corinthians. And so I thought we might walk through these and see if we agree or have we experienced that feeling. Maybe those of you out there listening today, are you experiencing this beautiful side, you might say, of love? Now, love is a lot more than a feeling.
Right.
That's something, of course, we're going to talk about. It's a verb, not a what a describer is it? What, adjective?
Noun? Or
no,
it is an adjective. You're right. It's been a
English
long time ago.
You're the English professor. All right. So the first one, they give 10. I don't know if we have time to go through all the 10, but they give 10. Here's the first one. It says, love makes you feel invincible. Love makes you feel invincible. Now, when you go back 33 years ago, did our love, because here's the thing, we met, but we were together only for a year from that day you picked me up until we got married.
Yes. We kind of had a short courting and engagement.
That's right. And we were young.
We were very young.
You
I
were
was,
20.
Yeah, 20 when we got married. Yeah.
Yeah, when you got married, and I was 22.
Yeah, we were babies.
Yes. Now that we have kids and even grandkids, wow. All right. So anyways, love makes you feel invincible. If you're out there and you're in love, do you feel invincible? And here's what I jotted down. The danger is that we're not invincible. Now, have you ever seen this idea of just being in love actually create issues in the relationship because we are just people, we got skin and blood and that kind of things.
Right. Yeah, I think love obviously can make you feel invincible, but I think, like you said, I think the danger in it is, I think oftentimes when we're dating or when we first get married, we do have this misconception that, we're in love, so everything's just going to work out. We can get through anything, and that's not always true. I mean, it's like you were saying a minute ago. Love is it's action. It's putting feet on that, and I think, but I think a lot of times we go into it thinking to the relationship thinking, well, we're in love, so we can make it through anything, and once you are married, I think you quickly realize that that just being in love doesn't get you through anything. Marriage relationships take a lot of work. It's being willing to, have patience, and it takes a lot of sacrifice, and, so it doesn't just happen. I think, we have to be very intentional about, putting in the hard work, doing the things that we need to do in order to have a healthy, whether it's a dating relationship or the marriage relationship, it's just being very intentional. It doesn't just happen.
Yeah. You think about love, we're going to kind of discover this beautiful side of love. And if you have that, it can persevere. It is invincible in a sense if you think about it. But a lot of times when we're first dating, it's not love maybe that we have, it's a feeling that we have.
It's that feeling of love.
Yes.
That we're in love.
Yes. Or maybe even lust, depending on our situation. But, I was thinking about when we first started dating, and it took a lot of work to perseverance on my part for that first date. And then we were dating for a while, and I think, I was in love, I would say. And then you kind of pulled away a little bit. And tell us what it was that you were thinking that for you to say, hey, let's think through this, which I think is good, right? You don't want to say I do or make some long-term commitment if you don't know if what you have is the real thing or not.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think for me, even at that point, I knew that I loved you, and I could see myself, of course, spending the rest of my life with you, but also knew that, you had certain dreams and goals, as did I. And, your dream, your goal was, basketball. Back then, that was before the nudge to go into ministry. And so, you were in college, you were getting your degree in education, you were going to be a teacher and a coach. And I think for me, just thinking through, because my dream, I was going to school for fashion merchandising. And, my dream was, I wanted to move to the big city, New York or Dallas or, somewhere where, fashion is all around you and pursue that. And so I think for me, it was just using, I don't know, at the time, I thought it was wisdom. I still think it was wisdom, but to say, well, let's think through this. Let's make sure, because I knew not just for me, but for both of us, that was going to mean, some sacrifices and, what does this mean? So, so I think just kind of putting a pause on it and thinking through those things and, making sure, praying and all, making sure that, this is the direction that God had for us and that we wanted to go.
Yeah, that's what makes love invincible.
Right.
Is when you really work through what some of the issues might be.
Yeah.
The second one the Huffington Post had was love gives you incredible inspiration. And I think that is a lot of that, motivation. It seems like you're motivated, inspired. A lot of artists are inspired by relationships. But let me get to the third one. It says love makes you happy. And this is a difficult question, but what about love is it that makes us happy? And then how do we hang on to that? Because it's not just a feeling, but you don't have to feel happy to be happy. Mm-hmm. So as you think, back on, our, we've been married for 33 years. 33 years?
33 years.
33 years. I knew it. I was just testing it.
Yes.
But we've been together for longer than that. And so what is it, do you think, about love that makes you happy?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of things about love that makes me happy. And, like we were saying a few minutes ago, love is not just a feeling. It's a commitment to act in a loving way, even when I don't feel like it. So even, on those, very occasional times where you frustrate me or you do something annoying,
Me?
it's, or I do, it's that, but love is not just a feeling. It's a commitment that, I'm going to, even when I don't feel it, I'm going to still love. And so I think, it's a lot of things. Love is, it's the security that I feel in that. It's, that commitment that, we're in this together and just knowing that I've got you by my side, and I can get through these things, whether it's fear or whatever. It's, we have our love for each other and that commitment.
I think that's the really the key that sometimes we don't think about. We just feel, but we never stop to think, well, why is it that I'm having this feeling? And there's, of course, attraction and lust, all those kind of things too. But I think one of the reasons that love makes us happy is because, like exactly what you said, we're not alone. Life is difficult,
right.
You know what I mean? No matter where you live or what you're going through today, no matter where you're listening to the podcast or if you're even watching it today, right? It's difficult. There are struggles, there are challenges. And when you go through a challenge, if you don't have anybody with you, it's scary and
right.
it's lonely. Yeah. And so when you start to date somebody and you realize it's not just a one-night thing or it's not just, hey, we're going to hang out, which is fine, but this is developing into somebody that I can trust,
right.
that I can be vulnerable with. Makes you happy,
yeah.
Because we know that we're going to have to face something in the future,
right.
And to know that I don't have to face it alone.
Yeah.
And that to me is what you got to hang on to.
Yeah.
That's why when one of us does something, or one of you guys out there does something that creates distrust, it's so destructive to a relationship, because you lose that sense of, I'm not alone.
Right. Right.
You know, when somebody you're in a relationship with does something or says something, or, you know, now all of a sudden you start to wonder,
Yeah.
you know, am I going to have to face? And the longer you've been together,
The scarier that is.
yeah, because
Exactly.
the more you got to face alone. If you've got kids, you're now thinking, man, am I going to, you know,
Yeah.
have to raise these kids alone? Am I going to have to develop a home alone, you know?
Right.
And again, there's a great scripture. It's written by what the Bible says is the wisest dude that's ever lived, in Ecclesiastes. But it kind of says what you and I are talking about, is that two are better than one, because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. Also, if two lie down together, they can keep warm. But how can one keep warm? Though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. So let me ask you a question. I'll answer it to give you time to think about it. But what comes to your mind as a moment when that commitment was incredibly felt, or made you happy? You know, for me, I think about early on, early days of our marriage, it seems like I was sick all the time. You know, I had 2 surgery on my nose because of elbows in basketball. I had encephalitis.
Yeah.
I had polyps. I mean, all kinds of
whole
things.
list of things.
Yeah,
Yes.
surgery on my neck. I mean, all those kind of things. And, you know, I have my family, but my relationship with you, of course, is more intimate than even my relationship with my brothers or my parents. And to not have to face, especially encephalitis, to not have to face that alone,
Right.
there's a happiness in that,
Right.
And so, what about you? When you think about our 33 plus years, what's a time where that happiness as a result of commitment and not doing it alone that comes to mind?
Yeah, you know, I could probably give a lot of examples, but one that that initially comes to my mind is actually when we first moved to South Florida, 22 years ago. You know, I had been born and raised in Arkansas. You spent most of your childhood and most of your growing up years in Arkansas, and all of our family was there. And you know, we felt God calling us to South Florida through a series of circumstances, and you know, that was a scary thing to pick up. We had planted a church there, and everything was going great at the church, and we'd been there for like 8 years. And you know, in my mind, I saw us living there forever. You know, I saw us as, you know, retiring there, dying there. But when this came up, it was. I remember it being a very, very scary to me. Picking up everything, we had 3 young kids and moving to South Florida. But what I remember most about that, not really the fear and the worry, but it's just our love for each other. We have each other. We can get through this. We can make this, you know, and even feeling that in the midst of that, maybe fear and worry, knowing that, you know, that this is what God called us to do, but we have each other, you know. And I remember even thinking at one time, well, you know, this may fail. We may get to South Florida and hate it. We may, it may not be what we think it's going to be, but we have each other, you know, our love for each other, and we're in this together. And that helped me at the time to, you know, to be able to go into that with a sense of happiness and excitement about the future and what God had for us. And, you know, I look back now and, you know, and I'm so thankful that we made that decision, obviously. But I know fear could have kept us, you know, from doing that. But I just remember thinking, you know, well, I can get through anything. You know, I've got Troy by my side. We're in this together. We're doing this together. And that just created that sense of happiness and kind of fearlessness.
Yeah, and that's, you know, that's the beautiful part of love. You know,
Yeah.
real love, it's not I'm asking you for a commitment or you're asking me. You know, you
Right.
think about even the marriage vows. Each person says, I do. I'm committing. You know, they're not asking the other person for commitment. And so to me, what's so beautiful, we're talking about what makes love beautiful, is that commitment is something that is freely given. It's
Right.
not something that you're controlling. That's why those relationships are destructive. You know, when I have to control you or worry about whether or not you're going to be there, then I'm not going to experience the happiness of love.
Right.
And people sometimes describe that as falling out of love. But really, it's not that the feeling left. It's that the actions left
Yes.
what then resulted in a feeling. So I just
Right.
encourage all of you out there that are listening today to really think about, that don't miss out, I guess is what I'd say, on that beautiful side of love.
Yeah.
And are you having to ask for commitment, or are you giving it and receiving it?
Right.
Now, the fourth one, and the Huffington Post gives us, and we'll get through these a little quicker, but it says, love makes you a hopeful romantic. All right? Love makes you romantic. And I think probably those of you guys watching today probably have, and listening today, probably have a lot of different descriptions of what romantic is.
Right.
So I thought I'd start with you. What's your definition of being romantic?
Yeah, well, so, I think obviously the obvious things, like I think, just like holding hands and, cuddling and, those times when just for no reason you send flowers or leave me a note. I think those are all, things that I consider, romantic, having time together, alone time, date nights, those kind of things. But, it's funny that you say that, because I remember back recently we did a teaching together on the weekend on relationships and the marriage relationship. And, I remember you talking about how, for women, you were speaking to the men, and you were, that for women, a lot of times the sexiest, the most romantic thing you can do is, take out the trash or do the dishes. And I remember, at the time kind of laughing, but the more I thought about it, I thought that is true, like I do see those things at times as romantic, when you'll take the trash cans out, or you'll, do some of those things like, pick up after yourself, or those things that, that just bring that sense of happiness.
But I do those things all the time.
romance. You do. You're very romantic.
Yes. No, and I think, I was thinking about the question, for myself, what do I consider romantic? And I think it kind of comes down to serving the person you're in a relationship with without being asked.
Right.
And not serving you by doing something that I think is important.
Right.
Sometimes we can do that. Like, I think this is romantic, so I'm going to do that. Well, again, then I'm kind of serving myself.
Right.
As opposed to saying, no, the most romantic thing I can do is to show you that I'm thinking about you by doing, saying, responding in a way that
speaks to me.
Yes.
And is, kind of like the love languages. You hear often there's a book written on the love languages, and that's powerful because we all receive love and see romance in a different way. What I see as romantic, you may not, and what you do, I may not. So it's important to know those things about each other. What is going to, bring you happiness? What's going to, come across as romantic to you, and thinking through that. And that's a great word, serving. It is. It's about, serving the other person. Yeah.
And, I was thinking some of the maybe most romantic times that we've had is that when you go through something difficult, and instead of responding out of what I'm feeling in my own hurt, frustration, pain, whatever it might be, actually serving you, realizing that you're maybe going through that,
right.
those same emotions. My first thought is always going to tend to be myself.
Right. Yeah, we're all that way. Right. We think about me.
Right. Yeah. But romance is where then I think, well, this must be what Steph's feeling. So I'm going to respond in that way.
Yeah, that's good.
So love makes us hopefully romantic. And then they say love makes you eliminate your fear. And we've kind of already talked about that, and I think that's true. And I think it's because of what we were talking about. I don't have to be afraid because I'm not alone.
Right.
And no matter what, we're going to get through this because
we have each other. Right.
The sixth one they gave was that love makes you the best version of yourself. And here's a great question for all of us that are listening or watching today, along with Steph and myself, is how has your relationship changed as a result of your love for someone else?
Well, I think about, of course, our relationship. And, for me, when we first met, I grew up in church. My parents, when I was young, we went to church, but then they kind of got out of church. So really, like most of my growing up years wasn't in church. But I walked down the aisle and prayed to accept Christ when I was young, and even got baptized. But when I met you, I wasn't in church, wasn't going regularly at the time, and I started going with you, and I quickly realized that I didn't have what you had. I didn't have that joy, that peace, and really was convicted that I had gone through the motions of accepting Christ, but I had never truly trusted Him. And so for me, our relationship changed all of that. I remember one night, and of course I claimed to be a believer, and you and I went to church together and served together and all of that. But I remember one night after a church service, we got home, and I remember I was under such conviction. I knew that that's something I needed to do, that I had not truly ever completely trusted in Christ. And I remember waking you up in the middle of the night and just tears streaming down my face. And I told you, I'm like, Troy, I know, I thought I was a believer. I've walked the aisle. I've said the salvation prayer. But, as a result of our relationship, I realized, that I'm not. And so that night I said the prayer and became a believer. And so, for me, that our relationship has changed everything.
That's humbling on my part, because at the time I didn't realize that. And and then as I thought about how our love had made me a better person,
Right.
it's you're a very patient person most of the time, and I think that it really has helped me to become a more patient person and a more selfless person. To not, be athletics. You can focus just a lot of times. It's a team sport, but
Right.
you got to get a college scholarship. And then if you want to go on to play professionally or whatever, you're focused a lot on you. And you've helped me to get outside of myself and made me a better person. And I think that's what real love does. It's,
Yeah.
it focuses you on someone other than yourself.
Right.
Now, they've got a lot of great.
Let me just add
jump
real
in.
quick to that. So that's kind of the beginning, but and I think for you, like you have the as I was sharing earlier, you were going to be a coach and teacher, and you have that coaching mentality. And now, although it's not in what you thought it was going to be, coaching basketball, but you coach people. And so for me, that I think that has changed so much of my life. Just you're always pushing me to become better and to take risk. And I think, I've grown so much in that area. I think my life is what it is today because of your pushing me in that. And you're, coaching me. And I don't always like it. At times it's annoying. And I'm like, oh, do you have to?
I get that response a lot from different people.
But it has. It's made me a much better person. And I think, like I said, I think, I am where I am today because of that.
Yeah. As we've been talking about it, love is beautiful.
Yeah.
The real thing is beautiful because it's a selflessness that sacrifices for the person that you're in relationship with.
Yeah.
And real love, I guess, is like wine. I don't know much about wine, but I know they say, the older it gets, the
Right.
better it
tastes.
tastes. And I think real love is the same way.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to have beautiful love and not settle
Right.
for something less than that, and to make all the necessary commitments and sacrifices along the way that are necessary to experience the beauty of love.
Yeah.
So I want to encourage you, go back, check out the scripture there in Corinthians and its definition of love. You can Google the Huffington Post, their 10 feelings of love, see what you think about that. Steph and myself are incredibly grateful that you've given us some time today as we have talked. We'd love to continue the discussion, and you can do that with all of the links. And you can join us on our next episode as we continue to talk about the art of us. Thanks again for tuning in to the Troy Gramling podcast, and we'll see you next time.